Chapter 19. Peter was back in his room, just having said goodbye to Mary Jane at her apartment door. May was gone when he came back, where she left a note stating that she was doing some grocery shopping but would pick up some pizza on the way back. So, he had a couple of hours to kill before Ned and Harry came over for their guys' night, something that Peter wasn't particularly looking forward to. He wondered why he didn't tell Mary Jane about how Harry was coming over tonight. She was the one to ask him to offer Harry to hang out. But there was a part of him that feared that if she knew that Harry was in his apartment, then she would want to join them as well. And he didn't think that he could stomach seeing the two of them being so familiar with one another. Laughing together. No. He would just tell her after the fact about Harry. For now, he would work on editing some of the pictures that he took today. Grabbing his camera bag, he unzipped it and pulled out his camera. He sighed as he looked at the initials that had been stickered on the side of the sleek material. BFP. Uncle Ben. Closing his eyes, he rubbed at his forehead slowly as his thumb ran over the initials. Miss you, Uncle Ben. He whispered before he opened his eyes again and moved his hand to open the small compartment for the memory card. He withdrew it and started up his computer, his fingers drumming as he watched the screen come to life. Once his Windows screen was up, he input the memory card into the computer and then double-clicked the folder that popped up and... Holy hell. Peter breathed as the first picture popped up on his screen. Mary Jane was in that field in between the trees, wearing those tight shorts with her back to the camera as her head was turned over her shoulder, looking straight at him with a serious expression. Her lips were pouty. Her eyes positively blazing. Her back arched slightly so that the curve of her ass was more pronounced. He felt himself start to harden in his pants and let out a groan. It wasn't fair. She was just so sexy and he had to suffer through editing all of her photos, not that they needed much work done to them. Mary Jane was stunning all on her own and didn't need any digital Photoshop to enhance that. But there were a couple of pictures that had caught Peter's notice as he took them, where some random people walked through the background of their photoshoot and needed to be removed. Hand automatically reaching down, he pumped his erection to try and stave off some of the pressure against his zipper, but it was no use. He closed his eyes in shame. He couldn't just jerk off to pictures of Mary Jane. She trusted him with these pictures. He would be a total creep to use them like this when the whole point of the pictures was that she was using them to forward her dreams. Not so Peter could use them for his own personal spank bank. With that, he stood abruptly and shut off the computer. Then went out into the hall toward the linen closet so that he could grab a towel for a nice, long shower. He desperately needed it. He could start the editing at another time. Once in the bathroom, he stripped out of his clothing and hung the towel on the hook by the shower door. Then, he turned on the hot water and waited for it to heat up to a moderate temperature before stepping under the spray. He set about washing his hair, shampooing twice as he always did and then lathering sandalwood conditioner in his hair. When a bit of time passed, he looked down at his cock, still jutted out, hard and straining. He sighed and turned the water to cold. Peter shivered under the abrupt temperature change, but it did nothing. What the actual hell? How was he still hard? His mind racked through the possibilities. Was this another result of his spider powers? Was his body really that resilient? Against pain and discomfort? Even to the pain that cold temperatures could evict? Well, he couldn't very well have a hard-on when Ned and Harry came over. That would be really weird and not a conversation he would like to have if they decided to point it out to him. He knew that Ned especially had no filter with these sort of things, and tended to blurt out any observation aloud that he saw. He closed his eyes and tried to think of images that would turn him off. Ned in tight leggings. Aunt May with a wiry beard. Coach Wilson, all sweaty after climbing the school stairs. But the image of Mary Jane just kept popping into his head after each attempt to think of something different. He doubled his attempts. Mr. Harrington doing a weird hip thrust dance. Happy wearing a polka dot dress. Mary Jane with the golden sunlight in her hair. Flash picking his nose. Dead puppies. Mary Jane, with her hair fanned out in a bed of flowers. Dead puppies. Mary Jane. Mary Jane. Mary Jane. He groaned out his frustration and pounded his fist on the shower wall before leaning his forehead against it. He stood there like that for a moment, letting the cool water run down his back. Then, he sighed and released his fist from the wall and reached down in front of him, giving into the images in his head. Giving into his urges. Giving into his desires. and giving into the picture of Mary Jane in his head, beckoning him closer with a tilt of her finger. It was embarrassing how fast he had finished. All to the fantasy of Mary Jane looking up at him from that bed of flowers as he stood over her. Then, his fantasy had switched and he was lying on top of her, his hand running up her bare thigh, and just managed to get under the hem of her dress when his release found him. As he finished, his legs became weak, so much that he lightly fell onto the shower floor. He was way past in trouble when it came to Mary Jane. He could already feel that he had reached the point of no return. And he would never be the same person he was again, the boy he had been before he had met her. He had completely and utterly succumbed to her. And worse? She didn't even know it. "So, can you please just make sure to be a buffer?" Peter asked Ned as he set out the soda bottles on the kitchen island countertop. "Just to make sure that things don't get awkward?" Harry had yet to come over, though Peter did ask Ned to come a bit early, with only just enough time for Peter to recover from the orgasm he had in the shower, as well as the mini mental crisis that he had in said shower. "Of course," Ned affirmed with a serious nod before he hesitated. "Can I ask why you think it will be awkward? You said that Harry texted you back that he loves video games. To me, that makes him a stand-up guy." It was understandable that Ned wouldn't get it. He hadn't been in Peter's thoughts lately as he tried to piece together the extent of Harry and Mary Jane's true relationship. Was it just friendship? Were they secretly dating? Or was it that they were friends but Harry wanted it to turn into something more with her? And if that was the case, then what chance did Peter stand against a billionaire's son? Peter paused and ran a hand through his hair, mussing up his slick back look and releasing some of his wild curls. "I just want to make sure we cover all of the bases. Just in case. You never know. He could be a total weirdo that never blinks and just stares at you when he thinks you aren't looking." Ned stared at him with his brows raised. "Dude. You just described an owl. I doubt that Harry Osborn is an owl." Peter pointed at his friend in warning. "You never know. Always need to be prepared." The front door opened and Aunt May walked in, carrying a bunch of reusable bags full of groceries in one hand while balancing the pizza on the other. She looked up with a smile. "Hey boys." Peter and Ned both jumped forward to help her, with Ned grabbing the extra-large pizza from her as Peter reached for the bags. "Oh, thanks Peter," Ned, Aunt May said as she followed them both to the kitchen as Peter set down the grocery bags and set about helping her put away the items. Ned took his seat back at the kitchen island. "So, how did today go with Mary Jane, Peter?" May asked as she put away a container of hummus in the fridge. Peter was glad that his face was hidden in the cabinet as he stashed away a box of club crackers. "Good. We got a lot of very good shots. I would say that you will knock the socks off of this modeling agency," he said, trying to keep his voice casual and neutral. "You hung out with Mary Jane today?" Ned asked, his voice getting excited. "Did you kiss her? Tell her how you feel?" Peter turned to grab more items to put away out of the grocery bags with a cursory glance at his best friend. "It's not like that between us, Ned." He heard his Aunt May snort beside him. Why was it that he got the feeling that she knew more about his Mary Jane issue than he originally thought? "Why not?" Ned asked. Peter sighed as he stacked the boxes of different flavored Pop-Tarts. "It's just complicated." "Because she likes Spider-Man more than?" Ned's question was cut off at the sound of the knock on the door. Peter wanted to groan, equally in both relief and morbid expectation. He dropped the bag of frozen peas on the counter and went to open the door. As he turned the handle, and the door opened, it was to reveal the face of Harry Osborn. He had seen him at the party, but Peter would be lying if he said that he hadn't Googled him. Peter plastered a smile on his face and held out his hand. "Harry? I'm Peter. Peter Parker." Harry reached out and shook his hand, studying Peter's face as his eyes also reached past him to survey the room of his apartment's living room. He was surprised to see that they weren't judging eyes, but just the sort of gaze someone would have while in a new environment. "Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for this. It will make my first day at school less awkward if I already know a couple of people." Peter nodded. He could understand that. Then, he stepped aside to make room for Harry to step through. "Come on in, my Aunt May just got some pizza." "Thanks." Harry grinned as he stepped inside and bent over to take off his shoes before putting them on the shoe rack by the door. Ned usually just toed his off and let them stay wherever it was that they landed. Was Harry really this formal? Peter surveyed his outfit but was surprised to see just some jeans and a long-sleeved t-shirt on before his thoughts shifted and he assumed that they both had to be designer. Harry approached the kitchen island and waved a greeting at both Ned and Aunt May. Peter quickly made the introductions. "Harry, this is Ned Leeds and my aunt, May Parker," Peter said as he went over to open the pizza box while Aunt May turned to hand them some plates. Harry took the plate from her and seemed to watch with fascination as Peter and Ned dug in and started plating a few slices onto their plates before he scrambled to do the same. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Parker, Ned," Harry said and then copied Peter as he grabbed a bottle of Dr. Pepper off of the countertop. "Call me May," his aunt said with a smile of greeting. "We'll be in my room," Peter told her as both he and Ned turned to his bedroom, plates and soda in hand. Harry scrambled to follow while exclaiming in awe, "Dude, you get to eat in your bedroom? That's so cool." As the night wore on, Peter was finding himself on the verge of being dangerously charmed by Harry Osborn. Ned had taken to him immediately when Harry had taken his first bite of pizza and groaned as though he hadn't eaten anything in a year. At their confused looks, Harry had confided that he hadn't been able to eat something as greasy as pizza in years. "Only the best for my family," Harry had said, his tone indicating his annoyance at this fact: escargot, lobster, black truffles. "You forget that you crave things like pizza until you've had the chance to have it again." Which brought them to the present. They had settled on playing Super Mario Kart, all laughing and throwing jibes at each other as Peter was pushing at Harry's shoulder, trying to distract him as Harry's Yoshi character was currently in the lead. "Stop it, Pete," Harry yelled, laughing, as he tried to push back at Peter while still trying to maintain steady fingers on his controller. "Stop cheating." Peter had to remember to let himself be shoved a bit rather than sitting solid against Harry's onslaught. "All's fair when it comes to the race," Ned cried as he came up in second place, surpassing Peter. Harry reached over to cover Peter's eyes with his large hand. "Hey," Peter cried as he gripped Harry's wrist and threw it off of his vision but quickly saw that it was too late. His Toad character had fallen off of the Rainbow Bridge. "Dude." Harry was laughing gleefully as his character crossed the finish line. "Serves you right." "Peter," Ned said laughing as his character also crossed the finish line, "he totally owned you." Peter shrugged and leapt to his feet as he grabbed the hairbrush from his nightstand into his fist and held it high in the air. "It is I, Thor, son of Odin, and on this day, I swear my undying vengeance upon you." A balled-up t-shirt was thrown in his face, which Harry had grabbed from Peter's clean hamper that had sat neglected since yesterday. "Hey, Thor? You think you could use that hammer of yours to fly us to get some more pizza?" Ned was clutching his stomach, laughing at their antics. "More pizza? Peter, I think we've created a monster." Peter pointed his hairbrush at Ned's chest. "That's Thor, son of Odin, to you, mere mortal." Laughing, Harry stood and pushed Peter's shoulder with a big roll of his eyes. "I'm serious. I swear that one day I will become your mortal enemy if we don't get some more pizza. And I mean soon." "Yep," Ned confirmed with a nod of his head, "definitely created a monster." Chuckling, Peter dropped the act, as well as the hairbrush, and retaliated against Harry with a light push back at him. Harry stumbled a bit to the side with a light laugh. "All right. Let me just go tell May. Is it all right if we walk to get it? It's a bit warm in here." Standing and stretching his arms high above his head, Ned nodded. "I could stretch my legs." "So long as the end result is more pizza, then I'm game," Harry confirmed, already making his way to Peter's closed bedroom door to open it. The other two boys laughed at their new friend's one-track mind and followed through the door behind him. As Harry and Ned were by the front door, putting on shoes, Peter turned to May, who was watching some sort of soap opera in the living room. "Hey May, we'll be right back. Harry's gotten himself addicted to pizza and he threatened my life if I didn't get him some more." At May's bemused smile, Harry protested behind Peter. "I did not. I just said that I would become your mortal enemy. Isn't that the same thing?" Ned asked, a no-duh expression marking his open face. Harry didn't seem to have an answer, so Peter just laughed and walked toward the door to put on his own shoes. Ned and Harry already opened the door to wait for him out in the hall. "Don't get into any trouble, Pete," Aunt May warned lightly, though still with a smile. "I won't," he promised as he passed through the front door, closing it behind him, and froze. Mary Jane was walking down the hall from the stairs. She seemed to notice them at the same moment and froze as well. Her eyes were wide as they landed on Peter, then flashed to Harry, then back to Peter. What the hell was that all about? Mary Jane. Harry greeted warmly. He seemed genuinely excited to see her, and despite how much he really liked Harry now, he couldn't help the flare of jealousy in his chest. This was exactly what he had wanted to avoid. Hi Harry. Mary Jane seemed to thaw out a bit and continued the several steps needed to stand a moderate distance in front of them. You're Mary Jane? Ned stressed, his mouth was gaping as he stared. Hard. Smooth, Ned. She gave a little laugh as she looked at him. Yeah. That's my name. And here you know mine, but I don't know yours? Ned Leeds, he said with a nervous, little wave and a flush, longtime friend of Peter's. She smiled at him and Ned nearly looked like he was going to have an aneurysm. What are you doing here? Harry asked her, all the while Peter was looking for ways to end this conversation so that they could get out of there. He didn't like the way that Harry was grinning at MJ. Mary Jane pointed her thumb at the door behind her. I live here. Great. Now Harry knew where she lived. This just kept getting better and better. Harry shot a brief look at Peter out of the corner of his eye. A look that Peter pointedly ignored. Oh? I didn't know that. Peter didn't say. It never came up, Peter felt the need to defend. Shaking his head, Harry waved it off. Doesn't matter. Since you're here now, do you want to join us? We're going to get some more pizza. Harry's obsessed, Ned whispered gravely. Mary Jane raised both of her eyebrows in confused understanding. I see. Then her eyes met Peter's for a brief moment, and a look crossed her face that he didn't completely understand. But he didn't have the chance to study it for long, as just a moment later, the look was gone. Instead, she smiled sweetly and waved her hand at them. I don't want to interrupt your guys' night. Plus, I'm really tired. I had a long day. Though Peter knew that to be true, why did it feel like a light lie? He supposed that it didn't really matter, so long as it kept her away from Harry. But still, he left him a bit curious. You wouldn't be interrupting us, Harry tried to persuade her, his eyes imploring her to change her mind. Yes, please. Interrupt us, Ned blurted. Dude, seriously. Looking only slightly apologetic, Mary Jane shook her head and took a couple of steps back to her door. Sorry guys. Maybe next time. She jammed her key in the deadbolt and unlocked it. Then, unexpectedly, she turned and locked eyes with Peter as she said, have fun. And then she was gone, walking through the door and closing it on the 3 teenage boys that were watching her. 2 of them seemingly disappointed at her refusal, while the third only felt relief. It may be selfish of him, but he wanted to keep his time with Mary Jane between just the 2 of them for a bit longer. I would really appreciate it if you left a comment.